Welcome back to Somerset Place State Historic Site. We're at the end of the street to talk about the Overseer's house, which has been reconstructed as you see here. The overseers were part of the plantation's hired labor force. At any given time, there were between 2 and 3 white overseers and under overseers living with their family members and working at Somerset Place. These men managed the enslaved labor force and as such were an important part of the Collins family's attempts to control the enslaved community. Although Josiah Collins III gave orders to his overseers, he left it up to them to enforce those orders as they saw fit. The overseers awakened enslaved people, issued work assignments, administered the punishment and reward system, distributed weekly food rations, and monitored movement. With only a few employees to manage an enslaved labor force of 328 people by 1860, the overseers also relied on enslaved crew leaders like Alex to supervise large groups of field hands. But it was primarily through the punishment and reward system that the overseers could control the enslaved community. If an enslaved person did everything he or she was told to do, that person might receive extra food rations, tools, or luxury items. These rewards were meant to encourage hard work, but if that did not happen, punishments included withholding of rations, solitary confinement, whippings, being placed in the stocks, and even being sold. A former enslaved field hand named Uriah Bennett, who lived at Somerset Place as a child, recalled that, quote, "The overseers were pretty cruel sometimes." It's important to remember that as Josiah's deputies, these overseers reflected Josiah's power and control, and so their behavior was influenced by his expectations for them. The overseers were also some of the first people to work on the plantation. While preparing for the voyage to Africa in 1786, the Lake Company hired local whites to oversee the construction of houses for the permanent enslaved laborers and overseers, and to begin the construction of other needed buildings. Many of these men lived within a few miles of Lake Phelps and could work by day and sleep in their own homes at night. They were employed for varying lengths of time and were sometimes accompanied by enslaved persons whom they owned. The first recorded overseer was Richard Houghton, who was employed from February of 1786 through December of 1789. He also operated the company's store and was paid twice for going after freedom seekers, including his apprehension of, quote, Negro Jack. Other overseers during this time included Excelsior Arrington and Miles Sproul. These men worked under a manager who supervised daily operations for the Lake Company partners, since none of them lived on site. The first superintendent was Thomas Trotter, a Scottish engineer who planned the plantation's layout, canal, drainage, and irrigation systems, and the mill and machinery. He enslaved several people as well, including Dave, who fathered a child with Suki Davis. Trotter left the plantation sometime after the turn of the 19th century, taking with him Dave and the other people he enslaved. By the time that Josiah Collins II owned the plantation and was preparing for his son Josiah III to take over, a Mr. Carraway was the manager. An 1828 letter, neighbor Ebenezer Pettigrew wrote that, quote, "Mr. Collins came to the lake Friday before Christmas and yet continues. He is receiving the plantation from Mr. Carraway, who leaves the lake this day. Mr. Collins expects to stay here a great part of his time. He has got no head in the room of Mr. Carraway, but continues the overseer that has been there and has got another under him." Unfortunately, the names of those overseers were not recorded, but we do know more about the overseers under Josiah Collins III. For that, you'll have to wait for Part 2. In the meantime, don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified of our newest videos. And thanks for joining us.